2014. Germany wins the World Cup, and this 6-year-old boy leaves the US after 3 exciting years. I remember him proudly telling his teacher and classmates that his new country were football world champions. In fact, this boy was me. And my new country, Germany, was actually the country that I was born in. And this was a piece of my farewell cake. But this piece of cake was no piece of cake at all. It starts the journey of a third culture kid who at 15 has already lived on 4 different continents, making the answer to the question, where are you from, a very long one. Hi, my name is Luca Flader, and I'm here today to present to you the struggles and the gifts of being a third culture kid. So, what is a third culture kid, also known as a TCK? A TCK is someone who has spent a significant part of their childhood growing up in a culture different from that of their parents. I was born as a Bavarian child in Munich, Germany. My dad is German and my mom is Romanian. However, we only lived in Germany for 3 years before moving to the United States. I was only a 3-year-old boy, and honestly, I had no idea what was going on. After 3 years of living in the US, we decided to move back to Munich. I remember that shortly after we moved back, I would talk to my mom and dad loudly in the metros, trying to engage everyone sitting next to us. But this was weird in Germany, where there was always this eerie silence in the metros. This was so different from the US, where strangers would converse so much more and speak louder in public settings. This is a prime example of one of the main challenges TCKs face. A study by Smith and Kearney from 2016 reported that TCKs often struggle with adjusting and fitting into their passport countries because they are often unfamiliar with the dominant culture after having lived abroad and have a so-called reverse culture shock. Well then, at 10, after 4 years of living in Munich, we moved to Pretoria, South Africa. You see, this move was extremely difficult for me because during those 4 years in Munich, I'd become quite popular at the international school I was going to. And that is what made this move one of the hardest changes of my life so far. I had just entered middle school, and suddenly no one knew me anymore, and everyone was a stranger to me. It felt like I was stepping into a world where I didn't quite fit in. In fact, a study by Miller et al. Shows that children who move frequently often experience a heightened sense of loneliness and anxiety. And I found myself feeling exactly that. TCKs often experience such feelings due to unresolved grief over losing connection to people, pets, and belongings from their previous homes. People are always coming and going around them, and goodbyes become a regular part of life. Well then, at 14, after 4 years of living in South Africa, my family and I moved to Chennai, India. A true culture shock, going from the vibrant and spacious landscapes of Africa to the hectic and chaotic streets of India. After 1 year, we moved to Bangalore and to Stonehill International School. And that is how I made my way here today in front of you. Yet, where do I feel at home after having lived in so many places? I think I'm German, yet also Romanian. However, I wouldn't want to necessarily live in any of these 2 places. Looking back, the longer I stayed in a country, the stronger my sense of belonging became. Maybe my home is a little bit everywhere: Germany, Romania, the US, South Africa, and India. In fact, a study by Horsing and Jenkins from 2011 shows that children who TCKs often experience struggles with identity, feeling connected to multiple cultures, but belonging fully to none. This is why many TCKs can be compared to chameleons. since we tend to adapt our identities to fit different contexts. But this constant negotiation of identity can be quite draining, leaving us feeling unstable and confused. So how can we as a society help? Firstly, providing a stable support system, such as family and other support resources, such as counseling and TCK communities, can be very important, as these provide a sense of security amidst constant change. Additionally, encouraging involvement in sports and hobbies is also essential, as these foster a sense of belonging and constancy. So I want to ask you today, do you believe the struggle is worth it? I believe so. Firstly, a study done by Cornwell in 2011 reported that TCKs tend to have a high degree of social sensitivity, empathy, and social intelligence. We can often read social situations and easily judge others' feelings, thoughts, and personalities. Secondly, the TCK skill set also contains high adaptability and flexibility. We often cultivate a multicultural identity that beautifully blends various cultural influences. For example, when talking to friends in South Africa, I started using slang and words from the local language Afrikaans. In India, I had to adapt to the food, since everything is a whole lot spicier. And I went from loving schnitzel to loving chicken tikka. Last but not least, a global and inclusive mindset comes naturally to the TCK. According to a study by Horsing and Jenkins from 2011, TCKs tend to have a high level of acceptance and appreciation for diversity, whether it's related to cultures, religions, or any other forms of diversity. As an example from my life, during my primary years, I'd become good friends with a classmate from Italy. My mom had asked me who she was, and the only distinguishing features that I could come up with were that she's tall and that she likes to wear green t-shirts. That girl was the only black girl in that class. But using that as a distinguishing feature had never even crossed my mind, because for me it wasn't, and it shouldn't be for anyone. In a world in which country borders are becoming thinner due to globalization, internet technologies, and social media, in which more people are choosing to work from abroad, and in which companies are constantly expanding globally, these precious gifts are becoming more and more important. TCKs don't belong to a specific nation, but rather are citizens of the world. We are a nation that can bridge the gaps between cultures and foster understanding, creating a more inclusive world for everyone. The profile of a TCK is the profile of the global citizen. And our skills are the skills of the future global nation. Thank you.